you look at the audience and it's all male target with a suit or grey or blue or black, age between 30, 35 and 60. And we were like little, I don't know, unicorns there.
Hi and welcome back to another episode of Startup Stories brought to you by Nerd Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan, your host, and today we are looking at a fashion startup. When Antonia Maiwald saw overwhelmed and frustrated shoppers in fashion stores not get the assistance they were looking for, the idea for myProfashional emerged. Half a year later, she was joined by her co-founder, Lena Koschek. The team has built a platform that connects stylists, fashion bloggers, and influencers, aka Profashionals, with frustrated shoppers to offer them expert advice while they are purchasing their clothes. I am really happy to share this episode with you. Enjoy. All right, welcome. Good morning. It's 7:45.
Good morning.
We all look very fresh.
It's probably the earliest
It's the morning
interview
show.
we ever did. Yeah.
It's the morning show.
It's a new morning show.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time that early and waking up. We're super happy to have you on the show. I think it's the third time we have two co-founders. We've had a lot of single founders on the show, and two co-founders is always very special because there's a certain dynamic that is generated. Can you maybe tell us a little bit who you are, what your startup is?
Yes, my name is Antonia. Our startup is myProfashional, which emerged from the idea that we saw shoppers in stores that are overwhelmed, a bit frustrated, and don't really get the help and the assistance that they're looking for. And we thought there's so many professionals out there, be that stylists, bloggers, influencers, who would actually love to share their passion and advise somebody independently and honestly, and even make some money with it. So our idea is to connect the two, and I'm doing this together with Lena.
Yeah, good morning everyone. So basically I joined Antonia. She had the idea, she's the initiator of the business plan, let's say. I think back when you started it was September in 2017,
Yes,
with the idea, right. With the whole like deep diving into what could it be in terms of business. And I joined in March this year, so spring, after she had just told me about it and I was interested, and I'm coming from a background in marketing communication, so we just thought it could be a good idea to combine the skills there, because Antonia currently overlooks more the product development, let's say, and the overall lead of the strategy and the business, and I can fully focus on marketing, community building, meaning taking care of both our peer sites, of our professionals, and as well as our shoppers, like our end customers.
I feel like you saw me in the shop, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds like me." I hate shopping. I'm always so lost.
I think when it comes to shopping, it's really as simple as that. There's two groups. Some love it and some don't, and there's nothing in between.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, that's really cool. We talked before that you're both not working full time on this. What do you do during the day, and when at night you're developing that?
Or for me it's actually the other way around. I really do this project during the day, so from 9 to 5, and at 5 sharp I go to my other job, which is basically working at an internat. It's like a high school
or boarding school.
Boarding school, is that what you call it? Yes, where I look over some students and give them some perspective on what's next, what's the university life looking like, and how to evolve and grow personally. So that is a very nice kind of like switch and change of mind from being a full entrepreneur to being a bit hired still and earning some fixed money. I think that's very helpful and gives some security still.
Yeah. You're probably pushing them to become entrepreneurs.
Well,
this is the only real way.
To broaden up their mind and to do something that they're passionate about, yet that gives them a perspective, definitely.
Awesome,
yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
How about you?
I still have a full-time job as well. Like I kind of combine it all during the day. Sometimes I stay up long. So I work at Mila also. It's a startup for kind of the Uber for tech support, so on-demand tech service that you can book, and I work there as a key account manager. So I moved a bit away before that. I was working in Swarovski, like the international headquarters in Manadorf, in marketing communications, very classical, mass media and paid media, big budgets.
Yeah.
So,
Where we actually met, because we used to work there 3 years
Oh,
together.
right. So,
and it helped me a lot because I got a bit of the startup feel from Mila, because they are still considered a startup even though they've been kind of growing out of their early years.
Yeah.
But coming from a background corporate, you really feel like what it's like when you need to work with limited resources, be it time or money. And this, at the moment, is probably one of my key challenges, which is the resource time.
yeah, I think that's every entrepreneur's problem. If the day only had 48 hours.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're doing this platform to connect fashion losers like me to fashion lovers.
We call them shoppers.
Shoppers. You found a better name.
Quite a diplomatic shopper. But it's not just. Is that the question, or is there something else?
Well, I was wondering how you find out who your typical shopper is. I mean, you say there's one group it's shoppers, or people who are not good at it, and then there's the professionals learning fast. In that shopper group, who's your target customer? It's not everyone, right? Who's the first ones you're
That's
addressing?
marketing at its finest.
I was already trying to interrupt you before, because it's not just the fashion losers, or how did we call them?
No, shoppers.
Like the ones,
shoppers.
Yeah, the ones that they don't like to go shopping. It's
Yeah.
also actually the ones that they like to go shopping. They're just frustrated by the options, or let's say the overwhelming choices they have. So basically, when we looked at our target, before we even defined first marketing strategies, we identified 5 different groups of, or let's say 5 different targets of shoppers. So we have, in the beginning, we just thought about, there's like something more general about it. There's, if you really want to look for inspiration, or rather if you like kind of an efficient shopper. So we call it the efficient, is the one that he knows he needs to buy things. He knows he needs to buy a new suit, or even just sweaters, but no clue about where to go and what to buy, both in terms of style, maybe also budget. So, and you want to be efficient. You don't want to spend hours in shops just looking for the right things. Then you come home and your girlfriend doesn't like it. So it's like not the right dress. So basically, that's one target. Like, go with an expert and save time. I mean, that's what we do everywhere, right? We take an expert and we save time.
Yeah.
So also for this. Then we have another one that is basically, we call him or her the occasional. It's like when you have really, normally you know your style, you're fine, but then you have that one special occasion, be it the wedding of your best friend, and it's like, yeah, and then the dress code is, I don't know, peach apricot, and everything should be pastel, and you're like, okay, fine. Exactly. Or black tie for the man can even be a challenge. So somebody who needs something for a special occasion, also there, go with a professional, and you have an expert. We think about also the follower, so where we think about somebody that is really inspired by Instagram, and this is currently one of the biggest channels for fashion news, let's say, in the world, and you really you get inspired by certain personalities on Instagram, and you might want to really not look like them, but know how to, let's say, have a style like them.
Yeah.
And then we, of course, on the other side, try to get these influential people on the platform, so that really their followers could just book exactly these people because they're just so in love with how they dress.
Yeah.
We also have the gift giver, which is another typical situation I think everybody knows. Is like, well, I want to buy that one perfect gift, but I have no clue because I see my wife only 1 hour in the evening because I work so much or whatever. I'm not inspired, even for kids, even kids toys shopping.
Yeah.
You can just take a expert and get support and get this done more efficiently and with more joy, right? Because otherwise it's a challenge, it's a problem almost, let's say, and we want to bring back that joy and that fun to fashion and to shopping.
Yeah.
And the last group is the tourists. That is a group that we're targeting more in the future, but our goal is to grow this business or this platform globally and to one day be in New York. And whenever you say, hey, now I decide to go to New York for a city trip, that you could book someone there to show you Soho area and not just Main Square and high streets, but that you would find a local guy basically that shows you shopping in the hidden hotspots and in the vintage areas, or some smaller designer brands. And that's exactly where we see the different target groups. So be that a local here that wants to go efficiently, occasionally, a younger target, as Lena said, as the follower, or be it then at some point a tourist that really comes into Zurich or somewhere else to book someone to help him in this specific city.
Yeah.
Awesome. I really like the names you gave them.
Yeah.
It's very obvious.
Yeah,
what
I think
it is
in
for.
marketing we were very much educated to work with target personas,
Yeah.
and we spend a lot of time also really standing on Bahnhofstrasse asking people, hey, for when would you ever consider booking such a service? And that's from when we learned, okay, how do they call themselves? They say like, I'm the efficient, or well, I would only use it every now and then occasionally. So that's really when we came up with those like really smashing names. Yeah.
Can you go a little bit into detail into how you did that, standing in the street? How do you get the data to create these 5 personas? What do you do?
Well,
And when do you know, okay, it's enough, this persona really exists, and we know more or less how that person looks like, and you know.
well, it's a bit of a, let's say, not trial and error, but of course you go with an assumption. It's not that you go completely clueless and you're like, hey, who are you and why are you shopping today? No, we did our basic, let's say, research, desktop research before. We checked a bit consumer behavior online, and then we came up with like some assumptions, and we also wanted to use this street survey, not only to confirm the assumption, but also to give it kind of a priority to see, okay, and what's then really the trigger? Like, why would they actually buy
sweet
or
spot,
book this service and actually pay money for it, right? It's a service that would cost them, and it's something new. I mean, normally you're used to maybe you're in the retail store and you get it for free. It's not maybe the quality you want, but you get kind of whatever consultation. And so we went out and we had like our survey questions, like you have today the interview questions. So we were quite sure what we want to ask, but then we asked open questions just to see like how they're going to respond to it. And it was quite tough because, as you all know, when we go out shopping or we are in Bahnhofstrasse, we don't want to be stopped and asked questions. So we were really like trying to make the most that we can. We had even daily targets. We said, let's get to 25 today. And we did it. Like
we stood there with 2 iPads basically, and how many do you have? Well, I already have 5, so he's got another 5. It was really,
And in the end, it's basically, of course, then also it's not completely representative, because then we would need to have done that for like probably 3 weeks, 2 days a week. But we got very nice tendencies. So we said in Zurich, for example, we clearly saw occasional as one of the key motive, as well as tourist, or traveling. When I'm not in my comfort zone or in my area where I know everything, this could really be an add-on. And I think there we're touching an area where we also see some competition rising, where there's Airbnb Experience, very small player on the market.
Very small. I've never heard of it.
Or Get Your Guide, you probably heard of. But
Yes.
they're more broad, and if we really can make sure we take that niche or like that corner of fashion, could work for us.
Definitely amazing strategy. Actually, it sounds super simple, but I haven't heard many people doing this. Just straightforward and
that's
going
what we
out.
hear a lot of time. Also, we've been contacted by a startup magazine lately, and they ask, so what's your idea? What's the problem you solve? And then we explain to them, well, we're just connecting the influencers in this fashion world with the shoppers. Wait, that's so simple. Is that not existing already?
Yeah.
That's the question we always get, because it's so straightforward.
That's generally a good question to hear, I think. If your business is so simple that everyone's like, this should, or
how could
why
we not have come up with that before? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
How did you do the other side, like the professionals? I don't know. Maybe it's yourself or friends of yours, or I don't know. Who could you ask for this?
So again, there we have made the exact same analysis. Basically, we went with an approach. So okay, overall we call that group collectively the professionals, but in depth, who are they? And we defined in there not 5 but 3 targets, and we said, well, first of all, it's the stylist, the proper educated stylist, who has generally a one-person business, right? And has kind of like difficulties to get to a mass market, because they normally have one platform, they have one website, and they don't really have the marketing budget to promote themselves. So what we said, for them it would be great if we provide the platform where they could list themselves to be found by a broader customer base. And that's the first one. And then the second is really the influencer. That's the micro nano blogger, maybe the rising social media talent that wants to capitalize on his or her followers, because they're not yet big enough to make corporate collaborations, but they're still independent and interested to engage with their community and to create content, right? At the end of the day, they go shopping, they make a before and after image, and again, they have something to promote, to tell a story about. So they're really the ones who want to hype themselves and to make money a bit with their fashion knowledge that normally gets lost on Instagram for free. And then the last group of people is really the passionate, the enthusiasts that we call, that might be a part-time working mom who says, you know, generally I'm good at fashion, I have some time and I would love to offer this at Saturdays in the afternoon. I do this at a 30 franc rate per hour. You know, this is for me, myself and I give some passion to someone else, and I just join somebody for the social reason of it.
How do you make sure, I mean, especially with passionates, for example, how do you make sure that, I mean, your product is not just the platform, right? It's also the experience for the one booking it. How do you make sure that this experience and, you know, the outfit that the person gets at the end is a good experience? How do you keep quality high?
I really like the question in terms of the experience part of it, because that's exactly the point. There is no right and wrong when it comes to fashion, in the sense of, you know, you can only buy this or you can only buy that. So I think it's really about being there and guiding somebody with an own, honest and independent idea, basically, and give some perspective on it.
Yeah, we also, of course, we do like basic checks before we even activate a profile on our platform. So we do like, you could call it a background check. It sounds like they are criminals. It's more basically that we check already the way they describe themselves, what they put in terms of pictures, and then we have an onboarding call or even face-to-face, depending on time, and also on the, maybe it's just the occasion that we can meet. And then we listen really also to the motivation, what is his or her motivation to offer the service on our platform. And there you find out a lot, because the one thing we learned very quickly is that not everybody who knows how to dress him or herself also knows how to consult other people. But naturally, the ones that know, or that think that they know how to consult, they're actually having this talent. So we just, at the moment, we are quite lucky. I mean, we had the first shoppers and they're like beyond happy with the experience. And we had both, like we had a more experienced stylist situation or like booking, and we had a more, let's say, she's a bit younger. She just does it a bit for her own fun on Instagram. And both experiences were right in that sense, or good. Because the thing is that it's more about that we think that the experience is actually personal, and that two people meet each other. There's, of course, you always have the risk, this is polarizing, you can like a person, you cannot like a person, but you as a shopper, you choose. Plus, you can always stop. I mean, if you meet them in real life and you feel like, oh, this is not going to happen, wrong, right, whatever, you can immediately stop. There's no like Kaufzwang, there's no obligation to buy. You didn't pay upfront, you pay in the end for the time tracked. So there's nothing that stops you from also just run away, let's say. But on the other side, as soon as there's like two people getting along with each other, and they kind of, I mean, we see that our customers, they get a bit put out of the comfort zone in a very positive way. And this is what makes the experience so special, is that for now we always hear like, wow, this was amazing, I never thought I could wear that. And of course, it's based on their expertise and on their inspiration, but let's be honest, it's never going to be a hard checklist where you can say, yes, you have that qualification, and yes, this experience is going to be amazing. It's always a little bit open to social factors.
And I think it's the overall package that needs to be right, that needs to attract us. I mean, if we see the right motivation, if we see that personality is somebody that can socialize and that is, you know, generally making a good first impression, that's totally a buy-in for us, and then we're happy to have that person join us.
And what I learned from my company where I worked at is like you learn also from the non-happy cases, right? So when there is the first one that's gonna be an unsatisfied customer or a thing that goes wrong, then we need to learn and take action. But as far as we only have happy clients, I mean, why should we change our approach, right?
That's true.
What a luxury problem.
Well, you explained now two situations, right? Like it could be that the experience is pretty bad. You haven't experienced it yet, but it could happen. But it could also be that it works quite well, as you said. And we know with these platform businesses or marketplaces that it could be a challenge that these people don't book over your platform again, right? After the first time, because afterwards, for example, I know some guy in Zurich and he gives me advice and I just contact him directly. Hey, do you have time Saturday afternoon? How do you make sure that they continue like working with the platform and book again and again? Because in the end, retention is quite important for a business like that.
Absolutely, and I think that's a smart question. We tackle it from the supply side. So what we leverage is really the good relationship with our professionals, because what we give them is an added value when using our platform. So we try to keep the incentive of them going behind our backs or behind the platform really, really small. So what we do in terms of added value for them is when they use the platform, we have an integrated trip tracker. That means a shopper, when he books, he enters his credit card, and as of the time that they start, the shopper hands in a code, professional starts tracking the time, he keeps the time running, and at the end of the trip he stops and he gets automatically the payment. He triggers the payment by clicking the stop button. So that makes it really easy for the stylist or the professional to get paid for A, the exact amount of time spent, B, having no cash problems or any weird moment at the end of the trip saying, hey, now so you buy me, give me the 100 francs on my hand. But it's really this, we had a fun experience, it was shopping. Oh, and by the way, we just click stop and, the money is flowing behind. So that's not really a situation that you're caught in at the end of the shopping trip, which gives the whole thing, we paid now for this. So I think that's really an added value for the professional. He doesn't need to take care of the time. He doesn't need to have any payment hazards. And that's why we think this is a motive for them to use it. And at the end of the day, they get a rating at the end of the trip, right? So when there's a good rating, it gets promoted on his platform. Again, that's a potential sales boost for him because he is experienced. And if he doesn't use the tracker, also that does not happen. So that's why we think we're at the moment at a good path with regards to retention of customers via professionals.
You've probably looked at Airbnb for inspiration. I don't know. We had a platform idea and we looked at Airbnb. It was very similar, and the reviews is one big retention feature that you're building up your authority on the website.
Yeah, we want to use it as well. Like even when the way we list, then on our platform, the people should be driven by a number of trips they made, number of reviews and good reviews they got. And also, engagement goes beyond things you can actually measure and show to people and processes and like tools. It's also like really, we know all of them. At the moment, it's like 15. We know all of them personally. Most of them we even met personally. Now the key starter, let's say early adopters on the platform, they really know us from the very beginning. We pitch them kind of the idea and they're really engaged with us. We feel that, and it's like, of course you can always be like, somebody can always cheat on you, but we also think that in the future we will need to find measures, and we have some ideas and plan where it's more this intangible engagement, that they really committed to what we're doing and what they're doing for us, but also we're doing for them. So it's a very human approach to marketing. Also coming from the business where I work, where we also work with big communities, and you can really feel that the people you manage to engage in the very beginning are the ones that are loyal over years.
And I think we also learned from the worst case scenario Uber. Having the struggles with their drivers and not really having them on board, but suing them instead and complaining about, being told what prices to ask for. I think we learn very much that with your supply side, you need to be nearly even as close as with the demand side at the end of the day, because they're just as much your customer and you depend on them if you want to be successful with your peer-to-peer two-sided platform.
So you don't, I suppose you don't tell them a minimum rate per minute that they can or should.
Absolutely
should
not.
charge.
No, I think
it's neither minimum nor maximum.
Because I've seen, there's what is 30 francs per hour to up to 100 francs per hour I saw.
Yeah, we engage them really to say, look, you define what level of expertise you have. Have you studied stylists in your fashion in your previous education? Then yes, please feel free to charge an hourly rate that justifies that. Or if you say, I've just come from my university and I do that a little bit next to my other 1,000 hobbies, then well, fair enough, then offer this service for 20, 25, 30 francs and make some extra money with it. So that's totally up to them. And I think that also gives an interesting variety to a shopper who says, I can either spend that much or that much, and he has the choice.
And you're also clustering a bit, again, you match like targets, where we have a lady that is a bit more experienced, also older, you can say that, right?
Yeah.
And she has her own business. Like, she is a stylist, a personal shopper. She has even B2B, she has business customers. Sometimes she consults whole companies on how to go, how to dress for work.
Yeah.
And she has a website, right? So she has a certain pricing, even public to her website. And she was so nice to adjust the pricing there, like to maybe really not being competing to each other, but like they both works well along with it. And I think she definitely talks to a different target than our, let's say, more Instagram driven younger audience. And that's what we want. Like, we want that everybody has a perfect match on the platform. So.
Yeah. You talked about payment system before, and it all sounds, very Uber-like. It's all thought through. There's a whole development team behind it. So, I mean, I don't know if you're smiling. I don't know. That's how it should look like, right?
Yes.
But for someone just starting out, that could be a challenge. You're like, okay, there should be a payment system that with one click you can do it. How did you do it? What's the story there?
Well, I think fairly enough, we need to say that we are not only the two founders. There's two more on board with us in the team, and one of them, we're lucky enough to have a techie, or at least somebody who was able to write and help us with the functional specification of it and help us think through the whole process and make really a business analyst case out of it to make sure before we even go into an MVP development, we invested over 3 months into an in-depth discovery phase, where we really thought, okay, so who is the customer, what's his need, what's the benefit that he expects to get. And one of the big benefits was really this automated payment, and we invested a lot of time into making a flow that is potentially as easy as possible, and as you said, had a good team in the background who helped us bringing it to life. Yes.
And I mean, I totally agree that is a challenge. I mean, I watched the challenge a bit from the outside because I could lean back and be like, well, I'm marketing. Go and hustle with your product. No, but it was actually finding the right supplier. I think that maybe that pops up later with the other question.
Biggest challenge question.
It's like you need to find suppliers that you can, especially if you don't know yourself. We're not coding, we're not developing, so you need to find suppliers that you can really trust and that they're willing to really like understand your solution almost more than yourself, so that they can also coach you and consult you on your solution, not just be there like, yes, we're gonna do this, yes, we're gonna write code for you. So this was, we can maybe probably go later into detail.
Yeah, I would call them a partner, really. They were really a partner as from day one, helping us, giving us ideas on how to, and finding together with us a solution to the problem that we were able to properly phrase at the end of the discovery phase only. Because before it was also a bit floating.
And then what helps always, I think, if somebody starts from scratch is thinking that, I mean, you always think, oh, we're the first ones. My God, we have to like crack our head around because this is so complex, right? But you're never the first one. So there's always examples in the market, and especially for providers, I mean, helped us now or helped you when looking at who could be our partner, talk to people that they have worked with these guys before, and they're often almost neighbors from you if you do your homework and check on them, or payment providers in general. Like also we in my company, we had an encounter with different payment providers. There's big names in the market, and you find a lot out from them before engaging with them. So it costs you a lot of time. It's always research and checking on things.
But so you have a partner abroad, like an agency in Eastern Europe or even further.
We looked at 3 potential collaboration options: a business partner, supply partner here in Switzerland, then a software development company in terms of nearshoring in Eastern Europe, and we looked at offshoring as well. So we were also talking to some Chinese, Indian companies, and then we decided to go for the middle way, which is this nearshoring option, exactly, because it's still yet close enough to be on site every now and then. So we spend a lot of time in Ukraine where we actually develop our whole product. But Switzerland was just simply, from a cost perspective, not feasible for us, despite talking to 3 to 4 companies here. And then offshoring for us was, at the end of the day, too big of a risk. Still, we felt the cultural difference is just too significant in order to neglect it, and therefore we decided to go with this lean startup way to say, look, we need something that we can afford, yet that feels culturally close to us, and where we feel the match people-wise as well, and that we found, luckily.
Right. And you started with a simple Google search, I guess, and
yes.
talking to, of course, people you knew.
Exactly, started with a Google search, that is right, and then really talked to some other businesses here in Zurich that we saw listed on their platform to get some one-to-one references. Then we went down there to meet the people, really, because that was for me an A and an O, to see who is there, what's the people behind, before I would buy in such a contract. And that's, I think, at the end, the winning factor is the team there, to know the people that work for you, to get their passion. Because if they are not committed, what do you want to tell them over Skype from here in Zurich? I mean, that's just
definitely
from the beginning a lost.
Yeah, I really like this one point you talked about, the discovery phase. That I feel like many people who have an idea don't really know. They're like, okay, how do I build this? But really first kind of know your customer and know exactly how the basic version of your product should look like. And that makes it so much easier also to find the partners and then discuss with them, and because you know so much more how it should look.
Yeah, you need a plan before you run. I mean, there's many good runners, but if you don't know where you're heading at, why even invest the energy?
And there's so much devil in the detail. It's unbelievable. Even if you say like, well, I have a simple product, right? We just connect to people and then they go out shopping. It's even offline. Then they just need to be paid somehow. But you like go through that journey in detail, and there's so many questions you're gonna ask yourself. This way, that way, this notification here, down there. Like that is probably that was one of the key milestones, and also key topics that cost a lot of time, and it's so worth the time.
And then also I think it's a difference of having an idea in your mind and then making sure a whole team is on the same page with regard to that idea. I mean, if you say you're making a platform where you connect to people to go shopping, yes, you might have this idea in your head, you might think it a bit differently, but to build a common ground and to get everybody's on the same page, I think that's a key challenge that you need to solve during the discovery phase before you start building a team that then starts to work each and every one on a different piece of that problem, to build it and to make it a solution at the end that is coherent and concise to the outside as well.
Yeah. One easy comparison I often use is, we all imagine a house. And it's a simple thing, we all know what a house looks like, but all of us have a different image in our head, right? So we really need to get that down.
And staying with the house is like doing the discovery phase, like building the cellar. Like, look at the houses in these countries where they have no cellars. Like the first wind, and it's
to get the basic structure right.
And I think a key challenge for us with that regard was also to stay within that plan of the house. Because then we had the idea, we could do this garden. Oh, and the flower would look nice there. And why not on the roof building another, kind of...
Like a second floor,
exactly,
a third floor.
A 10th floor.
So I think that's the
we
key
need some
challenge.
stairs.
You get so excited about it, and everybody shares their ideas. How could we, and why don't we do that? And didn't we think we wanted this other way around? And I think it's crucial to focus, to stay within the plan that you've agreed during the discovery phase, and then do it, nail it down, and only then you give yourself the allowance to think creatively again and to question and to continue, but you need to focus and stay true to the plan you had at the beginning.
So you said you made some first bookings until now, right?
Yes.
How many of them have been there, and like how many customers did you advise with your professionals, and where is it going to? Like what do you do in the next 6 to 12 months to grow these numbers?
So now we've only been live 3 weeks. So that is a very limited amount of time, and we had a handful of customers, of happy shoppers.
Awesome. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yes, and now the idea.
Yay! That's good.
Happy shopping.
I mean, many people don't even come that far to actually have transactions.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
true.
And the lucky side is really that, I mean, our professionals are a community as well, right? And there we had 15 right away that signed up and that shared it with their other stylist friends.
Right.
And I think, Lena, maybe you want to explain that more, but the multiplicator factor that we have by leveraging the professionals and them sharing in their community.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the key leverages we have. One of the key measures we want to use. Let's say it's basically would help us a lot because it's almost going into the direction of growth hacking. Depending on how much the leverage is really going to be used and can be used. But knowing that out of these 15 people that we have currently at on the platform, and these 15 experts, I'd say 80% of them have quite a reach on social media, on their channels, be it their blog or really just Instagram, once again.
Yeah.
And our goal is really to keep them excited about us and keep them engaged or engage them in a way that they share constantly and they spread the word and we get their kind of support, let's say, and that because then they multiply our effect of any kind of marketing activity, which is not as easy as it sounds because we already we realized it's not a free channel really anymore. Even smaller, let's say, influencers, they have a price. They normally, you always compete if their content plan is very almost rigid. Okay. So we will really need to find ways to, as I said, excite them, and they need to be fans of what we're doing because then it's kind of giving them, they will share it and almost there. Well, no, not almost, but they will share it voluntarily because they support the idea, they like it, they want to push it, they want to support us. This is where we're going to get.
In the end, they also benefit
of
from
course,
it, right?
They also benefit from
they,
it. Absolutely.
They show themselves and say that, hey, let's book.
Exactly. But it's also often the case that they're not just doing this, so it's one of their one of their incomes and one of the things that they want to spend time. So you keep on reminding them. It's like I learned from my job. Also, my boss always tells me there's no such thing as free lunch. So it doesn't need to be that we need to pay them, but we need to keep them excited. We need to remind them of us because this is what I think when you work so long on the project, sometimes you come to the point where we're like, well, you talk so much about the thing and you told so many people about your stuff that you think my God, they must be tired of what I'm saying. And also our professionals, our community, they must be tired of what we're saying there. But actually no, because they have, everybody in his life now, you have so many stimuli, so many impulses, you just forget. So we need to make sure that we're constantly top of mind for them so that they can push it out to their community. Of course, we support this. We cannot just rely on this one channel. We support this with other marketing activities at the moment, mainly digital, where we go Instagram we define as our key channel because people are there if they look for inspiration, if they want to kind of browse through other people's styles. But we do have other ideas. We will also start to connect with other industry players. We already reached out to quite some hotels because we still feel like our target, the tourist, is very attractive. Yeah. So we want to aim at collaborations or at least support from them so that we can communicate through their channels, through their web pages, where any hotel often has a section where they say, this is what you can do in Zurich, this is where you shop in Zurich. So we want to be there, right? So we want to be at that moment where a customer, be it the tourist or be it the follower, looks for inspiration. So.
Yeah, awesome. That really sounds like a plan for me. It's smart. It sounds like a smart strategy, but we'll see if it works, right?
Yes.
Let's hope for the best.
There's always a bit of luck also involved, so we need to
and testing and changing
and
plans.
Investors.
And investors. So you're right. At some point, you're gonna need some money apart from the jobs that you have yourself. Maybe that's a challenge. The biggest challenge for you? We could just jump. We had the good side. You had some bookings. What about the tougher times? What was your biggest challenge, or is your biggest challenge, and maybe also a biggest learning that you can share?
Yeah, with regard to what was the biggest challenge so far, I would say it was the challenge to find the right production partner, because that was for us key. Quality matters most, and if you invest time into making a product that sucks or that lacks quality, that is not worth investing in. So that was a big challenge, but luckily we managed to overcome it. Now the second big challenge ahead, I would definitely call the investors phase, where now I'm just tomorrow in Berlin for an investors day and pitching all the time in front of an audience that is normally not so familiar with A, the fashion industry, B, the influencer scene and how the dynamics work on Instagram, but they're normally fintech, biotech, Medicare, you name it. You know, they're into that and they look at, okay, so what's your revenue tomorrow? And we're like, okay, listen, we are if you want to call it like this, a Silicon Valley business model. We aim at a perspective that is long term, and our payback day will be a couple of years ahead. We're at the moment a commission-based revenue model, so please be aware of what that means and see the value that comes with the community that we build. And that's something that we need to be very careful in educating our investors about, because they're normally not that familiar with that types of businesses. And then being two female founders standing in front of them, you always need to convince them extra, hey, we know what we're talking about, we have a financial model, we have forecasted and made our research and homework. I think that's a very big challenge ahead, yes.
Can you tell a bit more about that challenge? It's a very male-dominated world in general, and you are the first two female founders that we have on the show, and we're super happy about that. But maybe you can describe this challenge a bit more.
I can give you an example maybe. I don't know who's going to listen to that later, but I mean, it was actually a good event to say that first, but we've been invited, we had the chance to go to the Investor Summit Liechtenstein, end of October. And really, I mean, we've also been to the Startup Days in Bern, we've been to several events where there's a lot of startups, a lot of people that from the industry. We had a basic feeling of how these events look like. The Investors Day Liechtenstein, however, was really focusing on investors, so it was not even that many startups present. It was a bit of a knowledge transfer, networking event for investors, also presenting some startups. And we got there and it was basically, you look at the audience and it's all male target with a suit or grey or blue or black. Age between 30, 35 and 60, and we were like little, I don't know, unicorns there, because we were not unicorns, maybe flamingos.
I just can't imagine you two there were
really probably a handful other women, and you just feel like kind of out of place, like naturally. I mean, we're coming from this fashion business, now we know how much first impression counts. But in the end, you can you can be there and be like, my God, we don't know how to connect. They for sure have other topics, Liechtenstein, fintech, big topic, right? But then you can also turn it into a positive challenge and say, wow,
Absolutely.
but also for them it's interesting. I mean, they just talk to these other grannies there, no, I'm just kidding, but these other elderly men, and they know each other already, and so we just tried to connect, and they're all, I mean, actually in this world in general, people are very open. They're always open to listen. Like, it's not that you are going to UBS and you're pitching your business plan to get some funding. It's like you're actually in a networking event for investors. So everybody who goes there should have a certain mindset of, I'm here to network, so I'm here to talk to people, I'm here to open enough to also listen to people, and that's what helped us. You can basically talk to anyone and everybody, and there's no such thing as weird talks, I found. I mean, of course, there's always opportunity that you don't really match with your counterpart, but we had very good discussions, and from people we least expected, we got like super positive feedback. For example, I don't know if we can name names, but sure. There was one guy who works for SigTech. He used to work in Google. He's very much into is it fintech or medtech or biotech? One of these, like
one of those ending on tech.
Yeah, on tech, and also on like deep tech. I would say he's even deep tech because he has a background of Google. Very smart person. He also held a speech on how to be a good business angel. But then we talked to him where we were like, well, no chance. Well, let's just introduce each other because SigTech is important, and the Investors Club in Zurich. And then he was like overly open, and just telling us that actually he would be the perfect consumer for us, and he totally gets the concept, and he actually built a platform that connects people for spontaneous activities together when he was still in university, or I don't know, but like had a completely open side for it and shared experience, and that was just, I mean, it's an eye-opener when you just, it's not just what, you should not just, let's say, look at it as a challenge. You should always look at it as an opportunity, we feel.
I think coming back to the question, exactly what you mentioned, how do we feel in that environment? I think we need to turn it into an opportunity for us. If we are the ones to stand out, let's use that and make it our winning factor, because that gives us the opportunity to introduce ourselves to so many, and going exactly from that angle. We even had the case, we stood there on a one of those standing up tables. People come up to us asking proactively, hey, what are you doing here? Or why are you here? Or what's your story? They come and ask you because they find, there's someone special there in the mass. Why not heading up? And that has been a chance for us. And I think we need to make use of this benefit.
Yeah.
And again, we also had a moment of, actually we're not the first ones, we would love to be, but we're not. We had a chat with the founder of Outfittery, which is even kind of a competitor in the future, but anyway, she was very nice, and she took the time to talk to us, and they had the same, like they're two female, they're even both blonde, which is a bit worse than what we are.
It's not worse. It's not worse, right?
But they had the same, and they said, like, you need to be very bold. As a woman, you need to learn in that world, you need to be very bold. You don't need to be shy, and you also don't need to be hesitant with your numbers. Like we learned, like, be very bold, like tell them what your vision is, where you want to go, and why they should believe in you, and don't always make yourself smaller than you are, because I think, capability-wise, we're definitely the same level, so there's nothing to,
And lately I was invited to London. There's a female founders club hosted on the Google campus, so there we got the opportunity to pitch in a pitch clinic, that's what they call it, where basically females help females, and the idea is that they would tell you what not to say, like not to be too humble, like to really stand up and pitch your numbers in a way of, hey, I am the next CEO of this billionaire company, and now you gotta sell it like this. And that was really an impressive learning for myself, because they told you never ever are you gonna admit this and that I was gonna say during the pitch, and that it's shaping you the mindset, and you've got to learn how to behave in that world. And I think there's lots of opportunities out there of now people becoming aware of that and helping and supporting each other.
I really like the mentality of turning it into an opportunity instead of a challenge, or I really like that. So you were shortly talking about finding investors. That is a big challenge for you now. How so? What do you find most difficult?
Oh, that's already the question. No, I think at the beginning it's really, first of all, you've got to make a list, right? You've got to screen from the variety that is out there, who is relevant for you and why. Then, as a second step, you have to find a sweet spot on how to introduce yourself to them and make yourself relevant for them. Then you have to follow up with them, because they're so busy, they receive 1 million texts. And to keep track of everything, of all the communication, to be clear on what you want from whom and why, is something that is just costing a lot of time, and that needs to be consistently tracked and measured. And I think, always selling the same story, yet keeping the motivation up, the passion, not losing it after having heard 100 times no, and you're not relevant, or we don't believe in this, and you still need to keep believing, and still selling like this. I think that's not just from a work perspective a challenge, but also mentally. It's something that you really need to be aware before you start. You are going to be told no, but you need to keep going.
And you're going to be told no more times than yes, basically, which by nature I think every human being hates. So it's really, you need to overcome that.
I just love it.
Well,
I can't wait for the next no.
And then we're gonna rent you, and we're gonna send you to our next pitch now.
You're totally right. Everyone hates it, but the thing is, you only need one yes, right? I mean, or two.
Hopefully,
Temporarily, now the challenge is just this working under this certain umbrella of uncertainty, right? You never know, is this yes gonna be somewhere here ahead at the end of the tunnel, or is there not a yes, you know? And you know, until what reach or destination do you go? What's your deadline that you give yourself, or by when are you running out of capacity of going without a yes? And I think that's something that we need also yet to learn. We have not yet found the absolute final answer to that. But I think that's exactly what we're lucky for, being a team and not a single founder. I think that's what helps it so much. My gosh, we have 4 heads that spin their minds around this question, and that helps each other and motivates each other if the other one has a down. And that is just, I think, the most valuable asset that you can have in a startup is the team and the people.
This might be also your one of your learnings for listeners, right? How important the team is. I mean, it was for us. We also often have this problem, you know, how long do we want to go without a job and just working on our projects? And really helps having another person, you know.
Definitely.
When you have a down moment, have the other person come with a coffee and say, let's keep going.
True.
How do you track those this whole investment phase, these investors, these meetings? How do you track that? I mean, that must be chaotic. Or how do you organize it for
Excel?
it not to be chaotic?
Google Sheet.
Google Sheet. Yeah.
No, I mean, there's really also there a support from other startups, we must say. What we've learned, we've been receiving the investors lists from other startups where they've already done quite some pre-work in screening potential go-to contacts and listing them and having the contacts there. And I mean, that's already lots of work done. And I think now for us, it's just find a way of how we can organize whom we've talked to, what the outcome was. Are we yet early enough to recontact and kind of bother them again? Or, you know, what was the general feedback? Are they potential client or partners to go to later again? Or is that a complete no? And I think it's just,
Yeah, but it's a bit like being a salesman, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Right,
you have a lead list and you just keep track. It's a bit of project management and next to 1 million other things, it's just also
There's just also that.
Yeah.
There's just also that.
So it sounds like you had a very good journey so far, and it sounds very promising what you're doing, and you have a good team on board and everything, but I'm sure there has been some regrets or things you would think you would do differently looking back from now. Is there anything like that?
It's a good question. I think looking back, what we could have done differently was finding a second opinion on what is really the lean way to start. Because I mean, as of now, we have built an MVP and that has cost some money, right? It might have been that we would have found a way that is even leaner, but I think there we were also not having somebody on board that was now completely the entrepreneur that did this before, you know, and that knew how much is too much to spend for an MVP and what is just enough. I think there too would have had somebody in the team who did a startup before or who had this experience would have been enriching. But I think now we did it our way. We're at the moment still fine with it. But I think that's something we could have learned from another entrepreneur or somebody who had the experience before that we have unfortunately not met.
Are you hopeful for the future of, and I'm gonna say it, fashion tech, right? Because you're, or do you hate that? Do you hate that word?
No, actually, it's an aspiration. I'd say fashion tech, because we, as Antonia mentioned earlier, we had of course many ideas how to enrich our tool, our software, let's call it like this even, because in the end, yes, it's a platform, but it has certain areas where you could go deeper into tech, where you could, for example, connect our app with a scanner that then can recognize product, even in the future, not even a scanner anymore, but you know, maybe scanned it, something that can basically just visualize. You give the app a product and it knows exactly what it is, can save it, something like this we've been discussing, so add some value for the customer, but also to kind of maybe think about an additional revenue stream. How can we work together with retailers because they are the ones that they desperately look for innovation to keep their customers happy. So we are definitely hopeful and optimistic because we see if we manage to prove that also our basic business model works, or at least works in the sense that we can build a community, there is people interested in the whole topic, and we get some funding, then we can really think of, our heads are full, our idea backlog is full. It's just like we cannot act on these, we cannot work these things out because we need to focus on our key challenge right now is growing and scaling and getting traction. So all our energy, all our money also now goes into this. And as soon as we have somebody on board supporting us, supporting the idea or the bigger idea of making this a smart tool to make shoppers happy. That's our mission, right? We say leave every shopper happy, well dressed, create satisfaction. How we call it?
Satisfaction.
Exactly.
Nice one.
Yeah.
I like it.
So, and there's many, I mean, you can do that with many things, right? With many tech things also.
Right. You can really support it. I love it out here. From the marketing
We left it for the end. Yes.
Yeah, then maybe let's jump to the last question. Huh?
Sure, let's do it. We need to start the day, right?
Still early in the morning.
Still early.
What is the last book, blog post, video, talk, speech, or whatever you have read, seen, consumed, and why would you recommend it to other young founders?
And cat videos don't count. I'm sorry. I'm sorry there. Too many people say that.
I have just received, I think that was yesterday, a post from a university student, a Chinese one, who graduated and basically talked about the educational system and how it should change to boost the entrepreneurial mindset, because he said he was declined from so many universities because he didn't have this corporate mindset of I want to go my career ladder high and I want to work towards high grades and one goal, but he was floating in between, and I may be able to find it.
I think I might.
All eyes on Chinese.
No, that was me.
No, that was you. That was McKinsey. That's not the one. But anyways, and that was a very inspiring speech of how he would suggest the educational system needs to change, because we're not preparing young students at the moment to become entrepreneurs. Not at all. We try to fit them in one schema. We try to make them choose one direction to study, and I think that's something that is really inspiring to how can we still build on that a bit more and to enable people and to empower them to follow their ideas, to make a plan for it, to be brave enough and encouraged enough to stand up, to speak, to try to win a team for it.
Yeah. I've read another piece of interesting, let's say, tips. It's from the author, like it's a association, I don't really know what they are, if they're in a club association, but they're called The Family.
Oh, yeah.
And we also kind of came across because they help finding investors, called thefamily.co, not com, co.
Yeah.
It's a European community based in London, Paris, Berlin, and they just published kind of they call it the 12 chapters of success factors for European startups. Sounds a bit boring, but they're very cool community. They use very fancy language, but the core of what they're saying is really good. They wrote 12 chapters on, or they're having basically a check on what does it mean to have a lean startup in Europe. Success factors. It's a bit like a summary of the book, the famous book, and they're really giving a good touch to it, a good twist to it. It's very smart. Like I liked the chapter about how you should hire, what kind of talent you should hire, that basically interns won't save your business, and this is really good. I mean, just if somebody wants to get a first impression on what it means to build up a startup, I think that's a good first read.
Yeah, we'll definitely link to both the video and the blog post or article. Definitely. I mean, we have coming back to your education topic. I mean, that's a bit in our alley.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's one of the things we're trying to do with the podcast. It's very small, but we're trying to educate through some kind of channel. And we're definitely also of the same opinion. The education system today is, I mean, in our perspective, it's not up to date at all.
It's definitely not, and it's such a big thing to tackle. So you have to start small somewhere and
Right.
try to sneak in.
Doing the same because now we've just been invited to HSG, where we were asked whether we would host a workshop for the masters in marketing services and communication management, where we're going, and we really want to promote 2 challenges to those students. First of all, it's our marketing question as a one-to-one linked to our startup, where we would like to get their brain power to come up with a solution for it. But the other is also really to say, hey, look, we are just as young as you. We're doing something, we stand up, we have an idea, we make a plan now, and then we go execute it. And we do that with excellence, and that's what we would encourage you guys to do as well. And I think that's just something we can give back. Yes, we go there, we want something from them, but at the same time we're going to show them, hey, look, it does work out, you can do it, just go do it. And I think that's something that is also in our interest to not only take from the community but give something back whenever we have the chance to.
Awesome. That's awesome.
That's nice. I think that's a good ending.
Definitely, yeah.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Off to an amazing kick-ass day.
Yeah. What is it? Happy Hump Day, no? Wednesday.
Is that Happy Hump Day? All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
We're always halfway through, so almost.
Almost halfway through. All right. Well, all the best to you and for your startup.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Startup Stories. I really hope you enjoyed it. You can find all the links mentioned in the episode at the bottom of the description, and if you liked the episode, click the last link and leave us a review. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.